And tonight I wanted to talk to you about the future of the Luciferian community worldwide. So, if you're not familiar with my work, I've been an occultist for well over 30 years, and most of that time I've considered myself a Luciferian, and in particular a Gnostic Luciferian. And if you want to know more about what that means, you can explore my channel. I have over 300 videos and growing every day. I put out at least one or two shorts, and I try and do live streams every now and then. But this video isn't about Gnostic Luciferianism in particular. It's about the Luciferian community worldwide in general. So, before I get into that, actually, one of the things that I really like to do on my live streams is to start off with a divination. And one of my favorite divinations to do is a bibliomancy reading using the I Ching. And I like to use Benabel Wen's version of that. This is I Ching the Oracle. This is her translation. The dark part is the actual translation of the I Ching, and the rest of it has all kinds of really good information on esoteric Taoism and the history of the I Ching, and it's got over 900 pages. It's really cool. Highly recommended. So let's start off and see what we get. I'm just going to open it up at a random hexagram, and we'll see what we got. Okay, well, this time we got hexagram number 61, which is faith within. And I'll show you what that looks like here. So this hexagram is composed of the wind trigram above the lake trigram. So if you're familiar with the I Ching and the trigram meanings, there's 8 trigrams, and together they form pairs, which are the hexagrams. And so if you understand the base meaning of those 8 trigrams, you can already start to get an idea of what the hexagram composed of each of those means. So we're just going to read the oracle portion of this hexagram. Do not rush to judge others. Gain a deeper understanding of why they act the way they do. The answer to a difficult question is arrived at only when you are receptive to truth. On the brink of an awakening, the time for harvest is coming. Ooh, ominous. You will soon manifest your full potential. There is a certain affinity between the oracle and you. Very interesting. Well, I think that it is relevant to what we're going to be talking about tonight, and it always works out that way for some reason. Um, I find the I Ching to be very insightful and powerful. So the first part of it, do not judge others. Oh, hey, Trillana, welcome. Do not rush to judge others. Gain a deeper understanding of why they act the way they do. So those are the first 2 sentences in the oracle for tonight, and I think that that sets a great mood or vibe for what we're going to be talking about tonight. So a little bit of history. Back in 2009, I founded a group called the Luciferian Research Society. Oh, I see we got another comment here. Utterly free waved. Hello. Welcome to the stream. Glad you're here. So back in 2009, I founded a community hub called the Luciferian Research Society. And this was created specifically to be a meeting place or a crossroads For Luciferians, left hand path occultists, and other adjacent paths, and even the occult community in general. And the idea was that we could come together and we could cross pollinate, share ideas with each other, share our knowledge with one another, find people to collaborate on projects with, and strengthen the community as a whole. And to do so in a level playing ground, in a non hierarchical structure, a community hub rather than an esoteric order with levels and authority figures and such. So the idea was basically to allow people who were part of all different variants of Luciferianism to be able to meet together, um, even if you weren't part of the same order, even if you were a solo practitioner, completely not affiliated with any orders, if you were even interested in learning more about Luciferianism but didn't necessarily consider yourself Luciferian, other left hand path practitioners, occultists in general, people who were into Thelema, you know, anybody who was open to the idea of fraternizing with Luciferians could participate in this. And initially, it was set up as its own website, as a social media platform in a sense, where people could create an account, uh, create a profile page, and there were forums and groups and that sort of thing. And at points, it was extremely thriving and active, but um, just the social media and internet environment has evolved and changed over the years. About 5 years ago, we opened up a Discord server for members of the LRS, or the Luciferian Research Society. And at this point, it has become the main hub of activity for people who are involved in the LRS. And so at to the point where the website wasn't even really being used. It was being used by maybe literally I could count on my fingers how many people were actively using it in a month. So it got to that point where pretty much all of the activity had moved to the Discord server. So I shut down the website in December of the most recent December, which was 2025. And we moved all of our activities over to the Discord server. We now currently have about 620, I think, at last time I checked, which was a few days ago, about 620 registered members of the Discord server for the LRS. And this is people, these are people that are from all over the world and even multiple different languages people are speaking. And they are people who are from that adhere to different currents within Luciferianism, as I was saying. So we have channels that actually discuss specific topics, but we also have some channels that discuss certain groups and schools and orders. And that includes the Novus Ordo Luciferi, which I founded about 2 years ago, and it was essentially an amalgamation of a lot of the previous projects that I had developed and worked on, and I integrated them together to form a new order that a new esoteric order that was able to combine them all in a coherent system. So the Novus Ordo Luciferi was founded just over 2 years ago. We have a channel, a public channel in the LRS Discord to talk about things related to the Novus Ordo Luciferi. There is a channel to talk about the Order of Phosphorus, which was founded by Michael W. Ford. There's a channel to discuss Temple of Ascending Flame and is a handful of other esoteric orders, for example. We have channels to discuss astral projection and lucid dreaming. We have channel to discuss um, Eastern philosophies and systems. We have channels to discuss tarot and other forms of divination, runes. We have ones that are a little bit less esoteric oriented, but still we end up talking about esoteric related things. Like we have a movies channel where we can talk about different movies that we've been watching or want to watch, especially ones that have some sort of esoteric angle or occult angle. Otterly Free says, nice, I joined. Been ages since I delved into this stuff. Looked into the OTO back in the 90s, but the Toronto chapter was shit back then. uh, yeah, actually, I was a member of the OTO in Toronto at one point, and I have a video on my channel about my experience of what I encountered when I was involved with that scene and why I ultimately left the OTO. And I recommend checking it out. It's actually one of the more popular videos on my channel, so it's easy to find if you check it out. Um, but yeah, I'll get into what's going on in Toronto a little bit later in this video. Um, so I kind of lost my train of thought here. Oh yeah, I was just talking about all the different channels that we have available to discuss different topics, including we have a food talk channel because a lot of people really like talking about different types of food that they've been trying, and it's really active and really fun. And oh, cool. Trelana says, I'm actually glad that I'm in your live stream. First time being in one of your lives. Very cool. I'm glad that you made it. So, if you are interested in checking out this community, there is a link in the description to this video that will give you an invite to the Discord server for the Luciferian Research Society. There is also a link to the Novus Ordo Luciferi if you wanted a more formal, specific school of occultism, if you wanted to learn Gnostic Luciferian alchemy, that particular current within Luciferianism, then joining the Novus Ordo Luciferi is the best place to learn about that particular current within Luciferianism. There are more than one current within Luciferianism, but if that is something that you feel particularly drawn to and you want to take it to the next level, then definitely the Novus Ordo Luciferi is where you would go for that particularly. Um, so there's a link in the description for to join the LRS Discord, and there's also a link to the Novus Ordo Luciferi website, which gives you more information, and you can join from there as well. Um, so what I wanted to get into was the idea of collaboration and unity on the left hand path, and in particular, Luciferianism. And, some people talk about, I talk about whether or not Luciferianism is a left hand path or not. And I think that for the most part, it does fit, but there are certain unique aspects of Luciferianism where it doesn't fit perfectly within the left hand path. There are elements of it that um, you might say don't exactly fit within the left hand path, such as there's an altruistic element to Luciferianism where there's this drive to share knowledge with others in order to help emancipate them from the bonds of ignorance and to empower themselves. and also to undermine systems of control that are built upon hiding knowledge, twisting knowledge, and exploiting people's ignorance. And to do that kind of bringing of the light, which is what Lucifer means, light bearer, bringer of light, to do that type of work, it often means you have to take on a certain level of personal risk, sometimes even great personal risk to do that kind of work, because when you upset the apple cart, when you undermine the power structure of a system of control, then people who are tied to that system of control, whether they're leading it or whether they're brainwashed by it, basically, people will lash out at you, and there will be sometimes severe consequences that an individual might face for having done so. Just take a look at history. Galileo was imprisoned for sharing knowledge that disagreed with the established doctrine of the Roman Catholic Church, which was immensely powerful at the time when he did so. And this essentially broke the monopoly on truth or on knowledge that the Roman Catholic Church had at the time. And they imprisoned him and threatened him with death if he didn't recant. So he ended up being forced to recant it. But the thing is that the knowledge was already out there. He had already shared it. The cat was out of the bag. The toothpaste was already out of the tube, right? And that is the embodiment of the light bearer archetype. That is one real life historical example of somebody playing out or embodying the light bearer archetype in their own unique way. Another example that I like to use is King Sejong. He was a monarch, a king, obviously, in what's now called Korea during the early part of the Joseon Empire. And at the time, the working class people were illiterate. Pretty much every working class person was illiterate at the time because they didn't have their own native writing system in Korea at that time. If you wanted to read and write, you had to put in a huge amount of time and effort into learning classical Chinese, or at the very least, an adapted form of the Chinese writing system that was adapted to be able to write Korean words using classical Chinese writing system, an adapted form of it, similar to Japanese kanji. Um, so it took a lot of effort because there are literally thousands of characters and you have to memorize each one, um, because it's a type of like a pictograph. Um, it's not a phonetic alphabet. So it takes a lot of effort. It takes years of effort usually to learn that sort of thing. And the working class people just didn't have the time to devote to something like that. And they didn't see the value of it at the time. Now, King Sejong the Great, one of only two kings of Korea that were given that title, the Great, he in secret developed a phonetic alphabet that would be very easy to learn and could be used to represent all of the different sounds that are used in the Korean language. And he called it, or it ended up being called Hangul, this Hangul alphabet, and it was almost like a scientific. It's even described as like the most scientifically created alphabet in the world. And he Eventually, he created it in secret and then released it to the public and made it go viral by saying how easy it was to learn. And people learned it. The working class people learned how to read and write using this brand new phonetic alphabet that King Sejong created. And basically everybody became literate at that point. And the ruling class people, they weren't too happy about this. They were just fine with the status quo of being literate with an illiterate working class, because if the working class is illiterate, then they're a lot easier to control because they can control the monopoly on truth or the monopoly on knowledge, and they can control the narrative much better if the people are limited in their ability to acquire knowledge, to share knowledge, and to communicate with one another because of being illiterate. So they were like, what did you do that for? You know, this we had a good thing going here with an illiterate public, you know. But King Sejong actually cared about his people and he wanted to empower them. And it worked. And so he went against the established system of power at the time. Yes, exactly. Trotsky. Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. You said a Hangul, isn't that a Korean language? It's not technically the language, it's a writing system. It's an alphabet that allows you to write Korean. So it's like saying um, the Roman alphabet, which can be used to write English. But the Roman alphabet can also be used to write French, you know, or Spanish, right? So the Roman alphabet isn't a language in itself, it's a writing system. Same with kanji or katakana or hiragana. You know, those three are three writing systems that are used to write Japanese language, but they aren't the language themselves. They're writing systems that are used to write the language. So there's a bit of subtlety there, but pretty much, yes. Hangul is a phonetic alphabet developed specifically for writing Korean. Um, it it has become the native writing system of Korea. And oh, this is actually Michael Gregory. We are Facebook friends. Oh, great, Michael. Glad to see you here. And thanks again for the other super chat. I really appreciate your support. It really helps me do what I'm doing here and to devote as much time as I'm able to devote to these types of things. Um, Order Prometheus says, "Hey guys, hello. I'm glad you could make it tonight." So if you are just tuning in, oh, Sariel, cool. If you're just tuning in, what I wanted to really get into tonight was a new project, a new initiative of the Luciferian Research Society. So, as I mentioned before, the Luciferian Research Society is a non hierarchical community hub which is for um, all different branches and currents within Luciferianism to come together and to cooperate, to collaborate, to share knowledge, and to support one another, to strengthen the bonds between our different branches within Luciferianism. And we're such a Luciferianism is such a small community in general. I think it makes sense for us to work together despite some of the differences that we may have between the way that we practice and little differences in the philosophy that we might share, um, because we have so much more in common than we have different. And we can learn from one another's differences. We can consider these different perspectives and grow personally from learning about these different perspectives within Luciferianism, because Luciferianism is non dogmatic to begin with. Trotsky, Michael, thanks again for the additional super chat. I really appreciate that support. So, yeah, the writing system, exactly. And because of the way that Hangul came about, I personally consider it to be an inherently Luciferian writing system. So I think it's really cool. It was kind of to stick it to the man in a sense, and it was from the ruling class. It came from within, and they couldn't really do anything about it. There was a bit of a backlash, but because he was the king, what could they really do? What ended up happening was when he passed on and his successor took over, his successor actually banned Hangul, banned it. But just like always, once the knowledge is out there, it's hard to pull it back. You can't put the genie back in the lamp, It was out there, and people continued to know it and use it, and took the risk of teaching it to propagate it to other people in their while it was banned. But if you look at the history of Korea, anytime an authoritarian government took over at any point, including a foreign government, they always banned Hangul. So that tells you something. They didn't want people to have that accessible and easy to learn writing system. So because they didn't want them to be able to communicate with each other. They didn't want them to be able to easily share knowledge, to acquire new knowledge, and that sort of thing, to write down records, to yeah, they didn't want that. So I consider Hangul to be an inherently Luciferian writing system. But back to what I wanted to get into tonight. The Luciferian Research Society currently has over 600 members worldwide. It's completely free. And as I said, it's a non hierarchical, non authoritarian, non dogmatic meeting place for all Luciferians and for any adjacent path to come together and in fellowship, to share knowledge, to support one another. And it's been mostly an online thing since its inception in 2009. But one thing that did come out of the Luciferian Research Society was the International Left Hand Path Conference. The very first one ever I produced in 2012 in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And this was the first time, as far as I'm aware, that a conference was created for the left hand path in general, where people could come from different orders, from different schools of thought, from solo practitioners, and they could all come together in the same room and share knowledge with one another and share fellowship, just like the spirit of the Luciferian Research Society online. We brought that into the real world by creating this International Left Hand Path Conference. See, before that, you would have conferences that were for a specific school or esoteric order, and you had to be a member of that order to attend. But this opened up the doors so that anybody could come and participate. And I don't think that that had ever really happened before, in that department in the left hand path in general for left hand path occultists. And eventually we ended up calling it Flambeau Noir. That's a name that I came up with it for the conference to distinguish it from some other ones that had popped up using confusingly similar name. And people kept coming to me like, that conference coming up, tell me more about it. And I'm like, I've got nothing to do with it. And they're like, what? It's got the same name. And I was like, no, it's almost the same name. So people were confused. And I was like, okay, just going to create a unique name for it. And it ended up being Flambeau Noir. Although, really, what I should have probably done is just called it Luciferian Research Society Conference because that already was the ethos behind Flambeau Noir. But this is what we're going to do. Going forward, starting actually last Wednesday, but um, this Wednesday, which is tomorrow, February the what is today is what today is the 17th. So on Wednesday, February 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time in the Luciferian Research Society Discord. Um, oh yeah, um, what do we have here? Mars Kira said, my friend Mark is going to be a speaker. Yeah, actually, Mark is hosting a weekly meeting online in the Luciferian Research Society Discord for anybody who wants to participate to show up to the Discord. And there's a video conferencing feature within Discord where we can jump into a voice channel. You can turn on your camera if you want, you can turn on your mic if you want, and we can just have a casual discussion. There might be different topics each week, but every week, Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, in the Luciferian Research Society Discord, and we already had the first one last week. We're having it again tomorrow and going forward indefinitely. We're going to be having a weekly meeting for the global Luciferian community to participate in for completely for free, and we can get to know one another. We can share knowledge. We can do all of those things and talk about things that interest Luciferians and are of interest to us. So I hope you'll join the LRS Discord server and participate tomorrow and any every other Wednesday if you're able to, if you have the time available to you to show up. You don't actually have to participate. You can just sit there and listen, lurk if you want. You don't have to put your camera on. You don't have to put your mic on. You don't even have to. There's even actually a text area where if you're in an environment where you can't put your camera on or you can't talk because it's either too noisy or there's other people around, you can still listen and you can watch and you can type and participate that way as well. Or you don't even have to do that. You can just sit there and check it out and listen. So if you're shy, if you're introverted, but you still want to check it out, that's completely fine. Join, hang out, just join the channel and have your mic and camera off and just watch and listen and absorb and hear the different perspectives and stories and knowledge being shared by Luciferians from around the world. Like I said, we have over 600 people in there now and growing every day. Um, in addition to this weekly LRS meeting, this public open meeting, there are 2 private meetings for members of the Novus Ordo Luciferi, similar, but it's just for members of the Novus Ordo Luciferi, and we get into more specific things that relate to Gnostic Luciferian occultism and alchemy, Luciferian alchemy, and the specific system taught within the Novus Ordo Luciferi. But if you want more fellowship or more meetings, that's another way to get involved in that, is to also join the Novus Ordo Luciferi, um, and participate that way as well for additional ones. So there is currently a weekly meeting in the Discord every single Thursday evening starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And usually these meetings go for about 2 or sometimes 3 hours. And there's going to be a second one. The date hasn't been determined yet, but there will be another one for the Novus Ordo Luciferi for the private community. But just, if you're just getting into this, if you're just exploring, check out the public one. It's completely free for the Luciferian Research Society that happens every Wednesday evening, starting at 8 p.m. and usually going at least 2 hours. We're going to have one tomorrow. I hope to see you there. Now, in addition to the online meetings for the Luciferian Research Society and for the Novus Ordo Luciferi, but the main thing I wanted to talk about tonight was the Luciferian Research Society stuff. In addition to the online weekly meeting for the global community, for the LRS, we're going to be doing local branches of the Luciferian Research Society, meetings in person for the whole Luciferian community, not just for one school within the Luciferian community, not just for members of the Novus Ordo Luciferi, not just for members of the Order of Phosphorus, not just for members of Temple of Ascending Flame or whatever. It's for all people who are Luciferian, people who are in adjacent paths, people who consider themselves left-hand path occultists, people who consider themselves Thelemites, people who are dark pagans or left-hand path pagans or Luciferian pagans, solo practitioners, all the same people that are invited to participate in the Luciferian Research Society online community. We're going to bring it into the real world, not just in these occasional international conferences, but on a regular basis in local branches. And these will also be non hierarchical and free, just like the online community. So, this is for anybody who wants to participate. And if you want to take the initiative to organize one of these local branches, join the Discord server first, the online Discord server, and make your intentions known that you want to help organize a local branch. And maybe there'll be other people in your area already who want to also meet and get together and help foster the Luciferian community in your local area. So we're going to be doing this in Toronto very, very soon. We've already got plans going for this. We have people already in Toronto, Ontario, that we're going to start doing these regular public meetings. Now, most of the meetings will focus on public lectures on topics that are of interest to Luciferians, Goetia, Aramonic yoga, lucid dreaming, divination, um, Klipoth, you know, all the different things that may be of interest to Luciferians, we're going to be giving talks on. And now, what we're going to also do is, where possible, we're going to have a live video feed of the meeting, not of the people attending, just to maintain their privacy, but it'll be on the presenters. So a live video feed on that's capturing the presentations given at these local meetings will be live streamed, and you'll be able to get that link to those live streams in the LRS Discord server. So now let's say we end up with 10, let's say we end up with like 12 local branches around the world, and they're all doing just one meeting a month. So you end up with 12 meetings that are going to be live streamed every single month in the Discord server, or at least a link will be shared in the Discord server to the live stream. There will also be those 4 weekly online only meetings, that so you're going to end up with, what's that, 16 meetings being held every single month for the LRS, and you're going to be able to that's basically one every other day, and that's with just 12 branches around the world. And so you can imagine, as this grows, then we're going to have a massive community that is supporting one another around the world, and you're going to be able to participate, in a sense, in all of those local branch meetings by tuning into the live streams from your home, from your phone, wherever you happen to be. You can tune in and watch these presentations being given around the world. I do have an idea for some small, non threatening type ritual elements to be included in these meetings, because we don't want people to feel too intimidated to show up to these public events. But at the same time, we are Luciferians, right? So it's not going to be too tame, right? But it's like I said, the LRS is not a school of occultism in of a specific. It's not a specific school of occultism. It's a place for us all to share our knowledge with one another, rather than having a very specific branch represented by the LRS. We're going to have all different branches represented by the LRS, and we're all going to share our knowledge with one another. We're going to collaborate on a network, an international network of Luciferians around the world. Um, and we've already spoken with other orders, including the Order of Phosphorus, and they are on board. So, um, with this idea, at least in theory, and what we're going to be doing is showcasing Luciferianism in general, non dogmatically, all the different perspectives. And so, if this sounds interesting to you, if this sounds exciting, and you want to strengthen the Luciferian community around the world, I highly encourage you to participate in this project, even if that just means to join the Discord server and hang out and tune in to the live streams of these different local branch meetings around the world. It's not, like I said, it's non-authoritarian, non-hierarchical, and free. So if that is of interest to you, then check out the link in the description. join the um, Luciferian Research Society Discord. And if there is a branch in your local area, attend a local meeting. If there isn't a branch in your local area and you want there to be one, make it known that you are willing to help build that, to help organize and to organize that. Let's see here. Trelana says, I will be there. Awesome. And like I said, Toronto will probably end up being the flagship branch because we've already got a community of Luciferians there that we're just going to bring together and start meeting. At one point, I was holding meetings for Luciferian meetings in Toronto regularly, and we were getting at least 30 people coming there all the time. So we're going to start that back up under the banner of the Luciferian Research Society because it's non dogmatic, non hierarchical, and free. Okay, what do we have here? Grayson says, first one I'll actually be able to stay for. Cool. Steelers Nation says, on behalf of all your local supporters in Canada, around the world, and here in the United States, we thank you for your channel, order, and the hard work you do. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I and I want to talk to you soon. So message me, Steelers Nation, because we can. I wanted to talk to you about something. So you can message me on Discord. Sanchez Veritas says, here, here. Great. Um, Brent says, I live in Alabama. That's great. You know what? We need people all over, even if you think that you're in an area that doesn't have other Luciferians. I I question that because I hear this all the time. People say, "Yeah, but there's no Luciferians in my area. I'm in the Bible Belt or whatever," right? I think that it's just because you don't know them because there are no events for you to find the other ones, right? But, like in Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. I built a community in Toronto from scratch by just showing up and creating a space for people to come and hang out and talk about these subjects with each other. And we were giving prepared talks. Um, and I just kept showing up consistently, and the word got out. And so, and I had guest speakers who weren't even necessarily Luciferian to give talks about Thelema, to give talks about whatever, any other topics that were of interest, or just to tell their own story, just to tell their own journey on Luciferianism. We had a couple people give a talk that was just them sharing how they came to consider themselves a Luciferian, and it's fascinating to hear people's stories. I love those talks, um, and we just kept meeting and showing up, and people, like I said, the word got out. More and more people were either curious and they were like, what is this Luciferian thing? I want to find out more. And so they would show up to the meetings, and if they liked what they heard then and enjoyed it, then they would come back. And this can happen anywhere. Of course, as long as it's not illegal where you are. There are countries in the world where it would be illegal to do so, and that's definitely a tricky situation, and I want people to be safe. So I'm not encouraging people to meet in areas where it would be illegal to do so, but that's not the majority. The majority of people who are watching my channel are in countries and locations where it is not illegal to do. In fact, most of the places that people are watching my channel from, because I see the statistics on my analytics, the vast majority of the people watching my channel are in countries where their right to hold meetings is legally protected. So you can have a Luciferian meeting in your area, and if you just show up and be safe, if you have some people that can act as security, then that's great. But I haven't found it to be necessary for the vast majority of the time. And even when it is necessary, it's just because somebody's being disruptive. They're not being violent. In my experience, of having actually done it in Toronto, and from the experience that I've heard from other people in other areas that have done very similar types of public events. Um, Alchemist King Dickens is going on about God gave all free will, Holy Ghost, bunch of word salad, and then it's like, no joking matter, bye bye. Okay, see ya. You're going to get comments like that on these types of videos, but I find that I didn't really get that in the in person meetings. Brent says Book of Consciousness. I'm not quite sure what that was in reference to. Pa Bear, which is also AKA Mr. Fantastic Bear. I'm glad you made it tonight. Says, I would love to have a more one-on-one chat with you about working more towards a local group in my area and to share some other ideas either on Discord or Facebook. Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Fantastic Bear. Message me. Discord is a good one. You could message me on Facebook as well. I will be very um, I'm very active on both Discord and Facebook, so you can reach me on either one. Trotsky, thank you again for the support and the super chat there. That it makes a huge difference. It makes a huge impact because I focus entirely on this, on building connections, building bridges within the Luciferian community. It's my main one of the main missions that I've taken on is to strengthen the Luciferian community worldwide by creating these spaces for the entire community to come together and share knowledge and support one another, and not just within the specific school of occultism that I founded, but the greater community as well. So that's been a major. Of course, I do have my own specialty, my own particular current that I've been pioneering and developing and evolving and refining over the decades that I've been a practitioner. And I want to share that with people who are in resonance with that particular current or that want to learn more about that current, which is, like I said, Gnostic Luciferian alchemy. Um, so I do have a vehicle for sharing that, which is the Novus Ordo Luciferi. But um, the other main mission that I have, besides sharing my own specific occult system, is to create bridges between the different currents of Luciferianism and the greater occult community in general. So I've devoted my life to this, and that's all I do now. And so the support that you provide me there makes a huge impact on me being able to continue doing this long term. So I really appreciate that, Trotsky. And you're in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. That's really cool. Fellow Canadian, you should message me, send me a DM on Discord. Join the LRS Discord if you're not already on there, and send me a message, and we'll talk. Love the Field of Dreams comment. Good film. Says Order of Prometheus. Brent says everyone is fairly open minded. Birmingham has a good community. That's great. That's great to hear. Um, yeah, and you know what? The LRS Discord server and the LRS in general, since its inception in 2009, we've managed to maintain a really positive community, a really mutually respectable community where people actually show respect to one another the vast majority of time, which is incredible. It's, you know, pretty much miraculous, you could say, in the occult community for that to exist. And ask anybody. There's a lot of people here tonight that are part of the Luciferian Research Society, and they'll attest to what I'm saying here, that it is a very mutually respectful community um, where people are feel safe to share their different perspectives and to you know um, challenge each other in a friendly way without getting nasty, without um, all this BS where people are bullying or name calling and that kind of garbage. So, oh yeah, Trelana says I made good friends within your server. Definitely, yeah. So it's a really great environment. Even if you're just curious about Luciferianism, you can come in and if you ask questions respectfully, then people will return that respect and do their best to answer your questions in the best way they can. Sanchez asks, where do we find more info on NOL, Novus Ordo Luciferi? Well, there is a link in the description on this video to the Novus Ordo Luciferi. It's just novusordoluciferi.org. But if you also want to learn more, you can join the LRS Discord, and there is a channel, a public channel for public discussion related to the Novus Ordo Luciferi, where you can ask questions about what it involves. You'll hear announcements about what kind of activities we're having, meetings that are being held, initiatives that are being run by the order, different new releases for members, courses that are being held for members, and that sort of thing. In the LRS Discord, you can ask questions and learn more about what is going on within the NOL. So the LRS is a good place to learn about these different schools of thought that you can ask questions. You can ask questions about other orders as well within the LRS, and there are people who are qualified to answer those questions for you because they are members of there. We have members of all the different major esoteric orders within Luciferianism and some related ones as well. So that's the hub. That's the place you go to find the information to tap into the wider Luciferian community. Sanchez says, okay, cool. I've been around since GCOL days. Yes. So then you understand what I'm talking about here. So the LRS is actually um, basically taking on the role that the GCOL held when it was active. Without so the GCOL did have a structure with hierarchy and that sort of thing, and it did have a fee and that sort of thing. So the LRS is very similar to the way that the GCOL was, especially now that we're going to have local branches as well. But the LRS doesn't have hierarchy like that, and there's no fee. There was no dogma in the GCOL, although a lot of people tried to accuse us of trying to establish dogma or doctrine in the Luciferian community, but we never were doing that. We were always open to a variety of different perspectives within the GCOL back when it was active. If people aren't aware of what that was, GCOL is was the Greater Church of Lucifer, and we later renamed it the Assembly of Light Bearers. Myself, Michael W. Ford, Hope Marie Ford, the three of us were equal co-presidents. There was another person as well that was involved, but he ended up being um, not what he presented himself as. He had was embezzling money and all kinds of bad stuff, and we ended up kicking him out. But myself, Michael W. Ford, and Hope Marie Ford, the three of us were equal co-presidents of the GCOL slash ALB while it was active. I mean, technically, we still are, and it still technically exists, but it's more just as a concept now and a website that has some information on it. But it's not hasn't been active as an organization in several years. So, the Luciferian Research Society, with the local branches especially, is taking on that role that the GCOL ALB was doing, but we're doing it without hierarchy and without a membership fee. So people can participate freely. People can participate without any people with authority figures or titles, that sort of thing. It's just a meeting place. It's a community hub, and we can all do that. And if you, like I said, if you are interested, I can help you get one going in your local area. I can help provide some guidance on how to do that and how to get it, how to build it up. And we can share information about these meetings in the Discord server, in the community, so it makes it easier for people to find. So if you are interested in attending local Luciferian events, public lectures, some light ritual, um, which I mean not like heavily involved. I don't, I don't just mean like love and light or whatever. I mean nothing too crazily involved in terms of ritual, accessible stuff. So if you wanted to participate in some accessible meetings, which are mostly going to be lectures, then the LRS is the place that you're going to want to check that out. The LRS is also your portal to learn about the specific schools and currents within Luciferianism if you wanted to take it to that next level and uh, commit yourself to learning a specific system of occultism within Luciferianism. Then you can choose one, or if you have the bandwidth and energy, you could do more than one if you wanted to, actually. Um, but you can learn about which schools of occultism that might be something that you resonate with, that might be something you think that you can learn something from, and then you can take it to the next level from there, either by joining the NOL, the Novus Ordo Luciferi, or you could join, like I said, um, the Order of Phosphorus. You could join Temple of Ascending Flame. You could, or you could even just remain a solo practitioner and learn from other people in the community and ask questions and that sort of thing, and do your own research and study from books and things like that. A lot of the Luciferian work is solo, anyways, but it is nice to have a community. Um, and if you do find yourself attracted to a specific current within the Luciferian path, then it is cool to be able to find out if there is a school of thought that closely aligns with that current that you can join and get more specific training in that specific school of thought and that system of occultism. So the LRS will be that hub for the whole community. And like I said, we're going to build a community, or we're going to build a network of local branches around the world for that, and they're all going to tie back into the online hub. So you will have the local meetings being streamed, live streamed, the presentations, etc., when it's appropriate to do so. We'll stream them so that members from around the world, or participants from around the world who are part of the greater community, the wider community of Luciferians, can tune in and check it out. So that's what I wanted to share with you all tonight. Do we have any questions? Is there anything that you guys wanted to talk about before I sign off? If you haven't already, the link to join the Discord server is in the description of this. I would join now before you forget. And you know what? There's actually also a Telegram group for the LRS. And if you go to the Discord server, I believe it's in the announcements channel. There's a link to join the Telegram group as well. It's not nearly as active as the Discord, but it's good to have like a backup. Trelana says, what is the Temple of the Ascending Flame? That is an esoteric order that I believe is led by Asenath Mason. Another prominent member is Edgar Kervil. And from my understanding, I'm not a member, but from my understanding, it is focused more on the draconian current within Luciferianism. So they work with Lilith, they work with Lucifer, and I think there's another one, but they work with the dragon energy, the draconian current of Luciferianism. It's kind of a specific path within Luciferianism. And you can participate in some of their open projects without having to actually become a formal member, which is a really cool thing. And that's a very Luciferian thing, to be able to participate openly, because Luciferianism, if you aren't as familiar with Luciferianism, like I was saying at the beginning of this live stream, the word Lucifer means bringer of light, or um, uh, light bearer, or bringer of light. And light has always been a symbol of knowledge and awareness. So bringing the light means sharing knowledge, means um, raising awareness, that sort of thing. Dispelling ignorance. It's the force of illumination, the force of enlightenment, and that sort of thing. And if you look at the light bearer archetype, Prometheus is a classic example of the light bearer. And he shared knowledge of fire that was forbidden to humans because the gods didn't want them to have it. The Olympian gods didn't want them to have it because they didn't want humans to be independent and to be empowered. They wanted them easier to control. But Prometheus shared that knowledge with humanity, with the masses, to empower them, and he shared it freely. So that's one of the cool things about Temple of Ascending Flame, is that they have their open projects where you don't even have to be affiliated with their order to participate in some of their projects. Um, Order Prometheus says, "Do you know if Temple of Ascending Flame has broken ties with EA Coetting? I don't like EA based on some of his actions." I would need to get some clarification on that. I don't know if they have ties with EA Coetting or not at this point. I know that it's Asenath Mason, and I know that she has had connections with EA Coetting in the past, but I don't really know. I don't know her personally, and so I don't know if she still has ties with EA Coetting or not. I'm not a member of Temple of Ascending Flame, but but I know Edgar. I could ask him, and you know, ask the question in the LRS Discord in the Temple of Ascending Flame channel, and I'll try and find the information out for you and see if and I'll get back to you on that because I can probably find out if I ask Edgar. Good question though. That's a great question, and I'll see about finding out that information for you. But yeah, we can follow. You can follow up in the LRS Discord in the TO AF channel there within the LRS Discord. But yeah, ask it again in the Discord, and I'll try and get the answer for you, and I'll post it there. Anything else anybody want to bring up in tonight's live stream? If you've enjoyed our discussion tonight, I highly encourage you to like the video. That will help let the algorithm know that you enjoy the live streams, and it'll be more likely to notify you when I'm going to do a live stream again. But also, if you subscribe, that also slightly increases the chances that YouTube will notify you when I'm going to go live or when I have videos come out. And actually, put out I usually put out at least one short video a day, which is usually a clip from one of my live streams or um, one of my videos that I've put out, a pre-recorded video. And sometimes I make dedicated shorts as well, specifically create them as a short and not just as a clip of a larger video. But I try and take the really important clips and post them daily. Trotsky said, crows are my favorite bird and gave a super chat. Thank you again. Um, yeah, crows are pretty cool. That's actually my family name. It's not just a pseudonym. You know, I know probably a lot of people probably assumed that it was a pseudonym, Jeremy Crow, but that's my real name. I'm actually native Ojibwe First Nation. So that's where that comes from. And originally, it wasn't the word crow, the English word crow. It was originally ndeg, which is the Ojibwe word for crow. But somewhere along the way, it got translated into English because of colonialism and cultural genocide and that sort of thing. Oops, I said a word that might get this demonetized, but it's the truth. In the history of my family, at one point, the name, um, because of the suppression of the language and that sort of thing, the name um, Undeg, the Ojibwe word for crow, eventually ended up getting changed to crow, the English word for crow. But yeah, that's my real name. It's not a pseudonym that that so I think it's really neat that my name is Crow because it's a really cool bird and it resonates with my aesthetic and my aesthetic preferences, and it's just a really cool bird. in general. Crows and corvids in general. So I feel lucky to have a really cool actual family name that's that. Actually, I have two family names, but I for online I usually just use the crow. But my other family name I've got is Mackenzie. It's because I'm also part Scottish, so it's actually Mackenzie Crow, Jeremy Mackenzie Crow. So the two main components of my heritage are Scottish and Ojibwe First Nation. But I'm legally registered as um, with my Ojibwe First Nation tribe, and which is Alderville First Nation in Canada. Or technically, it's not in Canada. It's just more convenient to say in Canada, but it's on sovereign native land, unceded sovereign land. Order Prometheus says, I identify with that, Jeremy. My mother's maiden name was Prince, but got changed to Prince during Anglo clampdown on Jewish names in the UK. Yeah, exactly. Similar kind of thing. Similar kind of thing happened. So, yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, so, yeah, legally, my citizenship technically is Alderville First Nation, which is an Ojibwe Anishinaabe um, native indigenous tribe, but I do have some Scottish heritage as well, which stems back through Clan Mackenzie. And I've never been to Scotland, but I think it would be really fun to go there and check it out. And there's a Castle Mackenzie, which I think would be neat to go see, where some of my ancestors from that branch of my heritage, you know, were headquartered, or the current headquarters of Clan Mackenzie is there's a castle. So I think that would be really cool to check out one day. I'd like to go and visit there one day and check it out. I'm much more connected with the native side of my family, but I definitely would like to learn more about the um, Clan Mackenzie and the history of that. And I really like to go and check out the castle. I think that would be really cool. It's actually funny. Um, One of the heads of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn uh, apparently was fascinated with Scotland and wanted to be associated with Scotland because he thought of it as a very magical um, country, I guess, and people. And so he ended up adding a Scottish name to his name, which I think was kind of funny. That he appreciated the culture so much that he kind of adopted kind of a fake Scottish last name, McGregor. He added. That's what I've heard, anyways. I heard that he wasn't legitimately a McGregor, but that he added that to his name, to his surname, as a hyphen, McGregor Mathers, because he appreciated the Scottish culture so much, and he wanted to be associated with that, with the magic of the native people of Scotland. So I think that that's kind of neat too. um, but yeah, Scottish and Ojibwe were both very tribal cultures, which is kind of neat as well. There's a lot of similarities in that, despite them being in completely different parts of the world. So I think it's neat. I appreciate my culture, that the culture of my ancestors. I appreciate and I think that it's really interesting to learn about what your ancestors, you know, lived through, and the history that they lived through, and how it came down to the point where now you exist. As any individual, I think it's cool to understand your roots. I don't limit myself. I take inspiration from um, all different cultures from around the world, from ones that I have no ancestral connection to whatsoever, as well, like Taoism. I find a lot of inspiration in a lot of Taoist stuff. Like, for example, like how I did a divination from the I Ching earlier in this live stream. Um, and I've done a bunch of studying of esoteric Taoism. I really find a lot of inspiration in Tibetan Buddhism. There's a lot of really cool stuff in there. They have some extremely advanced lucid dreaming practices that go way beyond what you would find in um, most Western sources of lucid dreaming information. You have I'm also really interested in Babylonian mythology. I think that there's some really cool Babylonian and Sumerian myths, and it's some of the oldest written records we have of mythology and that sort of thing. I think I find it fascinating, and I don't have any, as far as I'm aware, any ancestors that connect to any of those three cultures that I just mentioned, but I do find inspiration in them as well. But yeah, so I don't limit myself, but I also do find it interesting to learn about the history of the people that I'm related, that were my ancestors. I think that that's neat too. Order of Phoenix says, and Loch Ness is where Boleskine House is closed now, but where Crowley practiced before. Yeah, and Crowley was in Scotland, and he ended up getting kicked out of Scotland, I believe, and he had this crazy house there where he they painted on the walls, and I think Jimmy Page ended up buying it at one point. It still exists, from my understanding, but I'm not sure who owns it at this point. But I think it's been like condemned or something, closed down, like you said, Order Phoenix. Trotsky says apparently Gregory, my last name, actually split from McGregor. Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah. I've met a bunch of people in my life that were very into their Scottish heritage, and they've shared some stuff with me that I thought was fascinating and really interesting. Um, I'd like to, if I, if I had more time, I would definitely like to delve a bit more deeply into that. But I pick away at it here and there. Trelana says, I'm interested in theosophy. Seems fascinating and well, hermeticism and alchemy, but I'm in no rush to learn about it. Theosophy is interesting because it is a fusion of Eastern and Western philosophy, esoteric philosophy. Now, my experience with theosophy is is led me to feel like they've kind of gotten their fingers into a lot of different pies. So I was involved with an esoteric Freemasonic order um, that was co-Masonic, where men and women could participate equally, and they practiced the Scottish Rite degrees for the most part, although they did have three York Rite degrees that they integrated into the system. Um, and the whole thing was slightly modified by the influence of theosophy. So it's one of the larger co-Masonic orders out there, and I think, yeah, nowadays they call it Universal Co-Masonry, but when I was involved, they called it American Federation of Human Rights, or AFHR, because it was a branch or a schism off of Le Droit Humain, Le Droit Humain, which is French for the human right. And that was a schism off of the Grand Orient of France when they formed their own Grand Lodge and Sovereign Sanctuary when they decided to start initiating women, and they got expelled from the Grand Orient of France. And so they formed their own Grand Lodge and Sovereign Sanctuary, and they referred to themselves as Le Droit Humain. And that, like I said, that means the human right. And they meant that in the sense that um, that they were allowing women as well, that it was a human right to access the Masonic mysteries and not just men. And I participated in that. It was heavily influenced by, well, I wouldn't say heavily, there was a heavy presence of theosophists within that order, and there was a relatively light, I don't know how you describe the degree of influence that theosophy had on that Masonic order, but there was definitely an influence there. I think that almost every 33rd degree Mason within that co-Masonic order was also a theosophist that I know of. I think that every 33rd degree member that I knew in the order, and I knew, I think, all of them, I think every single one of them was a theosophist. And usually they were within um, like a highly dedicated branch of theosophy, which was referred to, I believe it was called the esoteric school within theosophy, which is kind of like an elite or highly dedicated group of theosophists where they were generally be vegetarian, and I'm sure they had other qualifications as well that they would try and adhere to. That was part of their practice as being basically high level theosophists. And they were also high level Masons. And now some of them were high level, or at least priests, or deacons, or even bishops within the liberal Catholic Church, which was basically a branch of apostolic Christianity that branched off of the old Catholic Church, which was a schism off of the Roman Catholic Church. But the liberal Catholic Church, it still exists, but it's almost dead now, because they don't have people coming in to um, take on roles of leadership within it. And so the liberal Catholic Church is almost fizzled out at this point. But it's basically a version, an esoteric version of the Catholic sacraments, but heavily influenced by theosophy, and for initiates, for occultists, for esoteric practitioners. So um, if you wanted that sort of Catholic mass, Catholic sacrament type thing, but you were heavily involved in the occult, then you could participate in the liberal Catholic Church as one of your options. And so I found that in that Masonic order, a lot of the high level members were involved in the liberal Catholic Church, or they considered themselves Luciferians. So it was kind of one or the other. They were either a liberal Catholic or they were a Luciferian at the top levels of that Masonic order, which is interesting. But both of them, but they were all theosophists. So it's interesting how these groups kind of overlap and connect. And yeah, Theosophy has, like I said, they've got their fingers in a lot of different pies. You know, whether that's a good thing or not, it's up to you. Um, Trillana said, thanks for the insight. No problem. Yeah, it's I've been involved in this stuff for decades, and I find it fascinating, and I love talking about it with all of you and sharing what I know. That's the Luciferian way, right? To share knowledge with others. Okay, well, I've been at this for about an hour and a half. Um, I should probably get I should probably wrap up this live stream. But to recap, I highly encourage you to join the Luciferian Research Society. Right now, the primary vehicle for that is the Discord server, although I'd like to expand out so that we don't have all of our eggs in one basket. If you have any suggestions for ways to kind of, um, expand to other platforms as well that might work for our type of community, then I'm open to the suggestion. Join the Discord though, and we can talk about it there. We do have a Telegram channel for the LRS, the Luciferian Research Society, but it's not very active. There are not a lot of people in there, but at least it exists as a bit of a backup, and you can find the link to that in the Discord. I am going to create a web page for the LRS. There is a web page now, but it's just basically just points to the Discord server. But I would like to make the community a bit more robust so that we're not just relying on the Discord. Um, but for now, the Discord is where it's at. It's where all the activity is happening. And tomorrow, Wednesday, technically where I am, it's past midnight. So today, Wednesday, February 18th, I believe. Yeah, Wednesday, February 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Go into the Discord server for the LRS, and in the voice channel, there is going to be a meeting that you can participate in. You can you can also just observe if you want, and we're going to be talking about. Um, I'm not actually. I don't remember what the topic for tomorrow is going to be, but we'll be talking about something interesting, I'm sure. And I hope to see you there. Also, we're opening up a branch in a local branch of the LRS. We're calling them obelisks. So we're erecting an obelisk of the LRS in Toronto, and we'll be having public meetings for the LRS in Toronto, and we'll live stream the presentations, and we'll link that in the Discord server. So people who want to participate in that can. Oh, wasn't it Aramanic yoga? Yeah, I think so. That's right. So I believe we're going to have a casual discussion on Aramanic yoga in the meeting tomorrow on the LRS Discord server. And Mark, a member in Toronto, is hosting that, and he's going to facilitate that discussion. And he's going to share some of his knowledge on Aramanic yoga, which he's studied and practiced for quite a long time now. But it's also open for other people to share their experience with it and ask questions if they have questions about it. And we can have an open discussion about aromatic yoga. And that's what that topic is going to be this one, um, Wednesday, February 18th, 2026. But we're going to have different topics every week. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time in the LRS, we're going to have an online meeting for the whole community. And then, like I said, we're opening up local branches, local obelisks of the LRS in different places around the world, including Toronto is probably going to be the first one that launches. We've already done some kind of test open events in Ontario that were very encouraging. And soon after, there'll be other local branches. I believe there's one opening up in Texas. Um, we will probably have one in Florida and one in California. Um, there might be one in Scotland. I think there's going to be one in um, London, probably, and I think in Sydney, Australia. I think we're also going to have one. But yeah, we're going to be opening branches of the LRS in all kinds of different places around the world, and all of them will share their meetings in the global hub, which is currently on the Discord server. So join that if you're interested in helping establish a local branch in your area. Then let me know, and we can go from there. And thank you, everybody, for showing up tonight, participating in our discussion. I appreciate the financial support that was provided, in particular by Trotsky with all the super chats. It makes a huge impact on me being able to continue to focus on this work. And I really appreciate that. If you wanted to support this work without having to provide a financial contribution, one thing that would really help a lot is if you hit like on this video, and if you checked out and watched some of the other videos on my channel and liked the ones that you enjoyed, and leave comments. If you leave a comment on this video, that would be appreciated as well. And that makes a big difference. Join the LRS Discord server. It's completely free, and it's a really great environment. A lot of respect for each other. Everybody has a lot of respect for one another there. A lot of cool people. There's discussion going on at all hours of the day and night, every day of the week. And until next time, everyone, stay lucid.